Guys, what's going on? Hello and welcome to Serial at Midnight. I'm excited because we're talking about one of my favorite movies of all time. The Untouchables has now arrived on the 4K Ultra HD format, and it looks gorgeous. I'm not going to bury the lead. It's the best the movie's ever looked. Beautiful, fine grain structure. The HDR pass, it's Dolby Vision, and it's got this beautiful added level. I'm noticing things I've never noticed before, and I've loved this movie for a really long time. It's been a format leader for me. I had the VHS tape because I couldn't afford Laserdisc. I had the VHS tape when I was back in the 90s. One of the first movies I bought on DVD when I could. One of the first movies I bought on Blu-ray. Now 4K. It's never looked so good. I'm noticing, you know, there's a scene that takes place under a red light. Sean Connery has this confrontation with a guy under a red light. It looks so good. It's leaping off the screen. It's like we're there. The headliners of the vehicles, I'm like, wow, that's like a really brown headliner. Things I've never noticed before that the HDR is bringing out. But of course, all that is meaningless if the movie is not great. And Untouchables, The Untouchables is a great movie. It is Brian De Palma directing. Of course, that's the director of Scarface. He would later bring us the first Mission Impossible movie with Tom Cruise in the mid-90s. But I think this is my favorite Brian De Palma movie because I love the 30s gangster thing, right? I love those Eddie G. Robinson movies. I love the James Cagney movies. And this is a movie that has seen those movies and has leveled them up. Of course, it's also adapted from the television series. I believe the credits say suggested by the Untouchables television series. It's basically Elliot Ness versus Al Capone. There was a book with Elliot Ness, co-written with Elliot Ness. Then the TV series, then the movie is the adaptation, and Elliot Ness is played by Kevin Costner, who was not a star really at that point. He'd been in Silverado as part of an ensemble cast. He'd been in an episode of Amazing Stories, the Spielberg series from the 80s. A great episode, by the way. The Mission, I believe, is the name of it. He had not yet done Field of Dreams, Bull Durham, all that stuff was Dances with Wolves, all that's still in the future. So he's kind of an unknown here. He's not unknown. People knew who he was, but he was not a star. And it really works because he brings this naivete to the movie. He feels very green. And it works because he's yet to become the Kevin Costner that we would know, Waterworld Kevin Costner and all that stuff. Sean Connery, a transition role. Sean Connery transitioning out of those leading man roles. That Never Say Never Again. You know, he's coming out of being Bond, right? Highlander, this movie, he's becoming part of a team, a supporting character. He's not a background character in this movie. In fact, he has some of the best lines of the whole movie. By the way, this movie's so endlessly quotable. David Mamet's screenplay. I've been quoting this movie for so long. You want to get Capone? He pulls a knife, you pull a gun. He sends one of yours to the hospital, you send one of his to the morgue. That's the Chicago way. That's how you get Capone. What are you prepared to do? Such great quotable lines. Enthusiasms. So many great lines, man. This movie is just full of them. And we take it for granted now, right? I always feel like the old guy who's like, they don't make them like this anymore. There are mob movies, but none of them that are as perfect as this movie. Shot in Chicago, using the history, the architecture of Chicago. I'm getting excited, you guys. Let me tell you a quick story. So there's Andy Garcia's in this movie. Andy Garcia is great in this movie. There's a scene that takes place, if you've seen the movie, you know, right? The train station, the steps of the train station. So Union Station in Chicago is where they shot that. Real location, historic, you know, we're dealing with, but by the way, the movie is about 1930s Prohibition, well, 1930 Prohibition, Al Capone, it's a mafia movie. From the golden age of Prohibition mafia stuff. And so there's this scene where there's this kind of a stakeout at this train station, and there's a baby carriage that ends up during a gunfight. That's all I'm going to say, because I won't spoil this. I don't want to spoil the movie for anybody if you haven't seen it. But so the first time I went to Chicago, I'd go to Union Station because it's a holy site for me, right? Union Station, that scene. And there's an old guy. He's 70s, gray-haired, white-haired old guy. on vacation, right? And he's with his wife. And he recreates the scene in Union Station. He's like running down the stairs in slow motion. And like, I guess I am kind of spoiling it, but he like puts his foot up, puts the gun up, and he's just letting his wife's just like, oh, this movie is amazing. This movie is so magical. Billy Drago as the bad guy is oh man, Nitty, is that his name? What an incredible, he just had a look. He had that real creepy look, and he played it up all the way up. He's left us now, hasn't he? He played that up all the way till the end. The Untouchables is an incredible movie. And it has now arrived on 4K, and I'm so excited. As I was watching this, I full disclosure, I wasn't going to do a review for this. I was like, this one's just for me. But as I was watching it, I was like, I got to talk about this. I got to tell people how much I love this movie, because this is one of the movies that made me. And I don't even know that I realized it until I was watching it. Of course, I mean, clearly I love it and I'm passionate about it, but I love a lot of movies. This is one. This is probably a top 10 movie of all time for me. Probably because it is so steeped in 30s Chicago crime stuff. Probably because it has that larger than life atmosphere. The score by Ennio Morricone, which is an unconventional score because it's... Well, here, this is interesting, right? Because I love Ennio Morricone's 60s stuff. Let's just take The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly as an example. That wow, wow, wow. The guitars, the weird vocalizations. That's why I love Ennio Morricone, because it's so 60s. And like the guitars, but you transition that into 1987 and there's synthesizers like ding, 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 ding. And I historically have not liked that because it sounds so 80s and so, this is like church keyboards, right? It's this weird like ballad, like middle of the road ballad stuff. But in watching it again, I'm just like, oh, this score totally works. We're far enough away from it now that it's as classic as the stuff in the 60s was. The theme, oh my goodness, you guys, the triumphant theme that plays several times when it first plays when the Untouchables form, and then it plays several times throughout the movie, and then again at the end. And I'm like, this is like goosebumps standing up on my arm. This movie's perfect. Now, you might not think it's perfect. I have decided that I think that The Untouchables is perfect. I would not change a frame. I wouldn't take a minute. It's 119 minutes. Perfect, Brian De Palma. 1 minute shy of 2 hours. And it does everything that you need it to do. Just magnificent. The special features. Let's talk about the special features. So it has all the stuff that was... There's nothing new. But everything from the last Blu-ray. By the way, this does not include the Blu-ray. This is just... Here, let's just do a more theme-appropriate sound. Okay. It does have a... Oh, it has this digital code. I gotta hide the code. It is just the 4K disc. There is no Blu-ray. I have the Blu-ray, but I don't see myself ever going back to it now because I don't need to. This movie is such a huge step up on the 4K format. But all the special features are included that have already been released before. The script, there's a multi-part thing. It's the script, the cast, production stories. Brian De Palma talking about the last couple of movies that he had made, which I guess were Wise Guys and was it Body Heat? Is that the one, I think 84 and 86, I want to say, had not been commercial successes. And he was like, I needed a commercial success. Talks about how he kind of been in and out of the studio system. So he comes to make the most bankable, like he needs a hit, right? He needs to put butts in seats and prove to Paramount that he's still a draw. And so he adapts The Untouchables, and it is perfect. It is, to this day, one of the greatest crime movies ever made. And that story is so fascinating to me. When you see a director be like, this one was for them, right? Is that you have these creators and like, well, I'll do one for me, I'll do one for them. This is the one that was for them, but it's so great. Like it's just absolutely fantastic. Reinventing the genre, the classic. And the original featurette, The Men, which it was the EPK, Electronic Press Kit thing from 1987. The Untouchables is a new movie starring Kevin Costner as Elliot Ness, the historic lawman, treasury officer tasked with bringing down Al Capone. That sort of a thing. For me, it's all, dated material, so it's not 4K, obviously. But the content is what holds up, and it sure holds up. I think I'm just rambling and bubbling and babbling at this point. I love this movie. I think this movie is incredible. And this movie is untouchable. Holy cow. How did I not see that until just now? This is one of my, it's one of my favorite movies, and now it's one of my favorite 4Ks. This is the one that's going to get all the play in the future. And I mean, I really want to know what you guys think about it. Does anyone else love this movie as much as I do? It's one of those that I think maybe we take it for granted. It's a part of conversations, but you look at Brian De Palma, right? Look at what that cat has directed in his lifetime. And for this to just be one of the pieces of his resume, like this would be someone's magnum opus, you know, this would be the best, like the top of the mountain for so many directors. This is just one of the things that he's done. But it's amazing, right? Does anyone else think that this is just one of the greatest movies ever made? Let me know in the comments below and we'll continue that conversation. 4K, 2 thumbs up, like all 10 fingers up. Highly recommended if you love The Untouchables, if you love adult, serious crime movies that have scope and grandeur and cinematic license. Because obviously it's a true crime story, but it's not bound to reality. It is a sweeping, that score. They don't make movies like this anymore. This is a movie that believes in movies. And I love it for that. Guys, thank you so much. Take care. Until next time, I will catch you later.